Welcome and thank you for joining today's conference, Outlook Resource Adequacy Capacity Trends. Before we begin, please ensure that you've opened the WebEx chat panel by using the associated icon located at the bottom right corner of your screen. Please note that all audio connections are muted at this time until the Q&A portion of the call. You may submit written questions throughout the presentation, and these will be addressed during Q&A. To submit a written question, select Everyone from the drop-down menu in the chat panel, enter your question in the message box provided, and send. If you require technical assistance, please send a chat to the event producer. With that, I'll turn the conference over to Cynthia Hinman.
Thank you, Marvin. I'm going to share my screen, so give me just a second here. All right. Just one more second. Good morning, everyone. My name is Cynthia Hinman, and I'm the lead client trainer here at the California ISO, and I'll be facilitating today's session. We're going to be covering the new resource adequacy capacity trends that have been added to today's Outlook. We're going to begin with, I'm going to give you a short review of the new features that have been added to the demand screens, and then we're going to follow with some Q&A. This session is scheduled to last for an hour, and it is being recorded. The presentation is currently posted in the ISO Learning Center on our website, and the recording will be posted when it's available, probably in a couple days. Before I begin, I'd like my co-presenters to introduce themselves. So can you please unmute yourselves and introduce yourselves? Start with Abdul.
Hi, good morning. This is Abdul Muhammad Ali from Operations Engineering.
Okay. And Rebecca?
Hi, this is Rebecca Webb. I'm on the short-term forecasting team here at CAISO.
And Tosh?
Hello, this is Tosh Campanella. I'm with the Communications PR department, and I am a web specialist.
All right, great. Is there anyone else I missed? If you are on there, please introduce yourselves. All right, let's kick it off here. So today, we're going to cover a few things. We're going to start with some new sub-navigation that's been introduced, some capabilities that we have on today's Outlook. Then we're going to go to the resource adequacy trend chart, followed by looking at the 7-day resource adequacy trend chart. Then I'm going to hand it over to my subject matter experts for the Q&A, and then we'll do a little wrap-up. So why did we make this change? Well, a couple reasons. We wanted to provide a more complete picture of contract capacity on the system, and it allows stakeholders to monitor the amount of RA capacity that's available compared to the needs of the system. So it's all about transparency, providing additional information for our stakeholders. So let's dive into the new features, starting with the sub-navigation that's been added. All right. At the top of the demand screen, you're going to see this new sub-navigation bar, which provides easy links to the charts on the demand page. You can click the chart name and see the chart that you want to see. The current demand trend, net demand trend, those are charts that already exist, so we're not going to really go over those. But we are going to focus on the resource adequacy trends and the 7-day resource adequacy trend. So let's go to that first one there. Before we really dive into all the data on this, I'd like to start with the options at the top of the screen. First, the chart defaults to today's date, but you can choose past dates if you'd like to see the date information. We have a drop down for that. That exists on our other screens as well. Next, there's the options. The options dropdown allows you to add reserve requirements and or RA credits to the chart that you're viewing, and we'll see this in action in a few minutes. I just wanted to show it to you now. Also, you can download the CSV file with the data from the chart. The graph also includes an information icon at the top right-hand corner, and I can't tell you how valuable this is. It provides you with information, a little more detail about the data contained in each graph, and I find it to be a really handy explanation. So now we're going to transition over to the data. So when you go to this chart, it'll look like this. You can click on a particular time, and it's going to provide you with a lot of different information. So first, the two top dotted lines, the dotted green and purple lines, and I'm going to call them green. It might be teal. I'm not sure. Green and purple lines. The first two at the top that we see are the available RA capacity and the available new net RA capacity, and they both include RA credits. The available RA capacity reflects the capacity designated to be bid in the market for that particular hour. Outages are deducted from this number, and the RA credits are included. Keep in mind that RA includes RMR and CPM. The available net RA capacity is the RA capacity minus wind and solar, and the RA credits are also included here. The next two that we're going to talk about are the green and purple areas of the graph, the shaded areas, and those are the demand plus reserve requirement and the net demand plus reserve requirement in those green and purple shaded areas. The green shaded area represents the amount of energy that's needed on the grid, including both demand and the reserve requirement, and the purple shaded area deducts the wind and solar. Finally, those lighter dotted lines are the day-ahead forecast plus reserve requirement and the day-ahead net forecast plus reserve requirement. These are forecasts based on historical data. And of course, the net one deducts the wind and solar. Both of these forecasts take into account the reserve requirement determined based on the percentages that you see in the box down there. So it's 1.5% of load for estimated regulation reserve plus 6% of load for estimated contingency reserves. On an earlier screen, I mentioned some of the options that can be applied to the chart, so we're going to look at those. First, the first option was highlight reserve requirement. And you can see how that area is now shaded on the chart. So it allows you to see the portion of the demand and net demand that is the reserve requirement. And it also shows this for the day-ahead forecast data. If you click the highlight RA credits box, it does a couple of important things. Not only does it highlight the RA credits on the dotted bars of the graph, but it also shows the megawatt quantity of the RA credits for the selected time. So you can see right there, the RA credits are 1,861 megawatts for the time that I selected. And so you have that information available as well. The next slide just shows both of these highlighted, these options checked off at the same time and the information that you get. So that's a quick snapshot of the RA trend graph. And the other report that is available is the 7-day resource adequacy capacity trend chart. And simply put, it just takes the 1 day, instead of just having 1 day of information, it's projecting out the 7 days of information. You'll want to note that the 7th day of the day-ahead forecast will not be complete until 9:30 Pacific prevailing time. So that is that chart. One other thing I want to mention, and something that I found, when I first tried to go to this, to both of these charts, I could not see them. So you might, if you have a problem, before you contact us, you might want to try one of two things. First, you might just need to press refresh. Second, if you're still having a problem, you might want to try clearing your cache for the browser that you're using. So that's a very high level walkthrough of these two charts. I am going to open it up for question and answer with the subject matter experts, and meanwhile, I am going to open up the caiso.com and open up today's Outlook so we can look around at the actual application while Abdul is talking in case he wants me to go somewhere to show you something. Okay, Abdul, it's for you. I don't see any questions in the chat right now. So I'm going to.
Yep. Thank you, Cynthia. Yeah, if you have questions, you can put it in the chat, or Marvin, is it #2 to send it through to get in the queue?
Yes. So those of you who use the WebEx information to call in may enter the question queue by using the WebEx raise hand icon. If you dialed in separately, go ahead and press #2 on your telephone keypad. I did see that we have a question. Did you want to go ahead and go to that?
Yes, please.
I am. Okay.
Okay.
There is a question from Patrick Cunningham that I see in the chat. What's the data source for available RA, LSC supply plan sums? And that's from Patrick Cunningham at the Public Advocate Office.
Okay, so the source is all the RA capacity, which includes the supply plan data, which is not the LSC, it's the supplier. So the supplier supply plan data, and then any RMR or CPM capacity that we have designated.
Okay. Patrick, hopefully that answers your question.
Okay.
And then I think Mary was on the phone with a question also, Mary Lynch.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm what you're calling RA credits, it's RMR plus CAM. Is there anything else in the RA credits besides those two things?
It's not RMR. So the RA credits we're talking about are the ones that are provided by the local regulatory authority. So they are DR, CAM, and LD. These are the credits that we get from the LRA. The RMR and CPM credits are CAISO credits, and they're not included because the RMR or CPM capacity, if any, are already in the calculation as part of the capacity. So we don't want to double count them. So we're just including the capacity, not the credit for those.
Okay, so the credits are the DR, CAM, and LD from the local from the LRAs, and RMR and CPM are otherwise in the numbers, already in the available resources.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, there are other questions in the chat. So let me go through some of those. Can you explain a bit more about why you have 6% plus 1.5% reserves in the analytics?
The 6% is our reserves requirement. So we put those in the graph because this is actually what we have to operate to. It's not just a demand. We have to meet the reserves requirement at all times. So to reflect a more accurate representation of do we have sufficient capacity or not, we included the reserves there, which includes the 1.5%. That's also the estimated regulations reserve. So the 6% is you know, contingency reserves, spin and non-spin, and the 1.5% is the regulation reserves.
Eric, did that answer your question? Okay. If you have a follow-up, you can put it in the chat then. Let's see, is there any way, this is from Eric Barron, is there any way to set up a notification when the RA outlook gets tight? If not, are there any thoughts about adding in that capability?
I'll defer to Tosh on this one. Tosh, do we have an existing way for them to get notifications? I think not, probably. Tosh, you're muted on the WebEx. I don't think we do have anything.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
No, we don't currently have a way of notifying users of any tightness. Just the normal our emergency notifications that go out.
Right. Yeah. So we have the, you know, our normal operations, you know, warnings, emergencies. We have the flex alerts, but specifically related to the scrap, we don't have anything that sets warnings when we're getting close when it comes to RA and demand. And I think I see a note here. Just to clarify, if it wasn't mentioned, the available RA capacity includes or accounts for the D rates by outages. So outage D rates are accounted for when we're calculating the available RA capacity.
So the next question, actually comment that Mark Richardson had, and maybe you just answered this, does on the outages also include the outages that are exempt from substitution? Does the RA include substitution megawatts?
All outage D rates, planned, forced, are included in this calculation. We don't have any exemptions because we're trying to reflect the accurate available capacity RA capacity that we need to meet our demand. So it's all outage D rates, planned and forced, as available, obviously, at the time of the refresh of the data.
Okay. Question from Rayanne. Would it be possible to update the chart to explicitly say that CPM and RMR are included? I guess that would be a Tosh question.
Yeah, I can answer that. That it is something that we could add in for more information in the information icon. We are limited in space on the description, but definitely in the information, the little modal that pops up on the right.
Okay. And then the final question that I have in the chat before we go back to the phones is the NERC standard of 6% inclusive of reg? I thought it was.
I believe, I have to check. I can't remember on top of my head, but I'll have to check.
Okay. We'll check into that one and send you the answer if we don't have it before we're done here. Marvin, are there any questions on the phone?
I have another question here on the phone. Let me go ahead and go to that line.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, this is Chris Devin from Customized Energy Solutions. Thanks for the update today on this. I had a question about the net aspect here and kind of how to reflect the impact of the variable energy resources, wind and solar, on this chart, just so that it's clear in my mind. So I guess the green amount, let me just say maybe my understanding, and then you could perhaps correct me if any of it's incorrect or mischaracterized. I guess when I look at this chart, the teal dash line at the top for the available RA capacity plus RA credits amount. And what my takeaway is from that is the expected production from the VERS, like the production forecast of the VERS, layered in. And then the purple would be the purple dash line, the available net RA capacity is taking away that RA forecast production from the wind and solar. So my understanding is that perhaps that's including or not including the NQC amount of those resources, and I just wanted to try to understand like is that included? How much of the wind and solar actual shown RA NQC amount is included? Is that just the purple line? I don't know if my question's clear there. I'm just trying to parse out how to really understand the impact of the net versus the gross amount here, if that makes sense.
Hey, Chris. Yeah, that makes sense. The net is basically the available RA minus all the wind and solar. So wind and solar are set to zero. No capacity is considered from there, and it's just everything else available RA, meaning again the impact of outage years. So that's the purple line. The green line, or whatever that color is, it's that same value, but for wind and solar, we're using the forecasted amount from ELS instead of the shown RA amount, and that's the top graph.
Okay. So then, just to drill down a little bit more on this and make sure I'm clear on this, the dashed purple line, does that include the shown NQC amount from the wind and solar, or is it all just taken out of that completely?
It's all taken out completely.
Okay, so that's surprising to me. So because that would mean that in this chart, it looks like there's 43,000 megawatts of shown RA, not including the wind and solar NQC amounts. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay. So then when you look at this green or teal dash line on the top, does that include all wind and solar, or just the RA wind and solar? Does it include the energy only wind and solar production profiles, or just the ones that have been shown for RA and are fully deliverable?
I believe it includes only the RA resources, RA wind and solar resources, their forecasted amount.
Okay, that makes sense. Just wanted to confirm on that. Okay, I think that answers my questions. I'll let you go with that. Appreciate the clarification.
Thank you.
Okay, there are a couple other questions that we got in the chat. First, there's one from Stephen, and the question is the available capacity referred to in the top part of today's outlook for current and forecasted demand chart the same as the available RA capacity plus RA credits?
Can you repeat that one more time, Ms. Cynthia? Sorry.
Yeah, it says, is the available capacity referred to in the top part of today's outlook for current and forecasted demand chart the same as available RA capacity plus RA credits?
Can you scroll? I don't think we don't have RA capacity in those charts and the current and demand trends. Can you scroll up, Cynthia? We don't have those as far as I know. Yeah. So the demand trend has only the demand, and the net demand trend has the demand and the net demand. And those are, the difference between those and The bottom two trends in the RA capacity trend is that we're adding the reserves requirement to the RA capacity trend. So you'll see a shift upwards in that one. It's a higher sum, but there is no RA capacity in the top two trends. So I'm not sure if the person who's asking the question can clarify what they mean there.
So Stephen, if you can clarify, or if that answered your question, let us know. One final question that I have here is, how are energy storage RA resources accounted for on an hourly basis? And that's from Bob Emmert.
Energy storage resources are shown as one value for the entire day, like all other RA capacity. So they would be reflected accordingly, one value for the entire day. If they have outages that are derating the unit, then that would be also reflected. So they're shown just like any other resource.
Okay, thank you. Bob, hopefully that answers your question. That is all the questions I have in the chat. Marvin, are there any additional questions on the phone?
I'm currently seeing no questions on the phone. Just as a reminder, you can use the raise hand icon in WebEx, or if you dialed in separately, you can use the #2 on your telephone keypad. Okay, it looks like
and to a previous question about that regulation, sorry, I forgot, I mentioned it earlier, the 1.5% is for the regulation requirement. I think someone asked about this earlier.
Yeah, the question was, is the NERC standard of 6% inclusive of regulation? I thought it was. And Mark Richardson wanted to add that if you look in the Market Operations BPM section 4.2.7, you can get more information about the 6% reserve margin.
Okay, we do have an additional phone question if you'd like to go to that.
Okay.
Caller, your line is unmuted.
Yeah, this is Peter Griffiths with PG&E. Regarding the capacity status that's listed at the top of the page, it's not in the graphs, but it is listed. For today, it's listed at 44,952. How does that value reflected, or where is that value reflected in the graph?
You're talking about this right here.
That currently is not reflected in the graph. That is a different number altogether. That is not RA capacity.
So that's total capacity? I mean, what is that number?
That is most likely best case scenario capacity. That is capacity in which we're pretty sure we can get, but it doesn't account for a lot of things. Like it says in the asterisk, it doesn't account for every single kind of outage and it's so it's not. If you're looking for like whether or not we're tight or not, it's not the best number to use. The best number to use is the RA capacity that we've just announced. So it really is the best number.
Is it reflective of what was bid in the day ahead?
I'm not sure. We'd have to get back to you on that.
I'm just trying to understand the numbers and sort of what they are and what their meanings are.
Okay.
Fully
no one
understand.
has an answer. If no one has an answer, we will have to get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I see Stephen, who asked the question earlier, his clarification is on the website, the current conditions, and I think this is maybe the same question. The current conditions refer to available capacity. What is that available capacity term used on that section equivalent to the available RA capacity plus RA credits referred to in the other charts? I think that we just went over that question, so I think that we've answered that one. Also, there's a question from Paul, and if not, you can comment again. Then we have a final one from Paul. Storage RA does not take into account state of charge. That's a question. I think the question is, does storage RA, or does it? I'm not sure what the question is, Paul. There's a question mark at the end of that statement. Sorry. Storage RA does not take into account state of charge, question mark. Does anybody?
I think he's asking about that, the follow-up to that storage RA included in the chart. That's what it seems like, and Paul, you can clarify. But the state of charge, it's not part of the RA calculation or showings. So it's not embedded in that chart. Okay, great. Also, another comment from Mark Richardson. State of charge is used to establish NQC. We do not look at state of charge when determining available state of charge for this graph. So that's further clarification. Thank you, Mark. And I don't have any more questions on the chat. Marvin, do you have any additional questions on the phone?
I currently see no phone questions.
Okay. Stephen thanks us, and thank you, Stephen, for the question. And he thanks us for adding these additional charts. So I just wanted to let the rest of the panelists know that in case you could not see that. Well, if there are not any further questions, if you don't have any right now, then we will conclude the session. If you do have questions later, you can visit our website and view the chart yourselves, and you can send a question to customerreadiness@caiso.com, and we'll do our best to send that information off to the subject matter experts and get you an answer. So with that, I want to thank you all for attending, and we will close this out for now. Have a good afternoon.
That concludes our conference. Thank you for using Event Services. You may now disconnect.